my first time was back in, I think, it was either 1974 or 1975. I don't know where you were at that time. You weren't here. Oh, you were in your previous lifetime. Okay. Yes, well, as our revered and respected President Chaitanya Prabhu said, we are going to read a verse or two or three. We'll see how it goes, but a couple of verses from Bhagavad Gita. What a wonderful book. And we're going to focus on chapter 18, verse 76, which is in fact the third to last verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita. But before we get there, we'll read another two verses. And devotees and friends, would you believe, we will read the first verse in Bhagavad Gita, and then the last verse from Bhagavad Gita, see how they tie together and keep the whole Bhagavad Gita sort of tied together. And then we'll focus on chapter 18, verse 76. Is that your telephone?
This?
Yeah.
No, mine's.
Oh, it's somebody else's. I wonder whose it is. Because it got slightly dislodged there.
That's frustrations.
Just check your phone there.
You got. I knocked it in.
Oh, you knocked it. Okay.
Okay, so here we go, everyone. And next step, though, please repeat after me, everyone. Please give me your attention, and please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So right, as I mentioned, right now we'll read the very first verse of Bhagavad Gita, and then we will read the very last verse, and just see how they connect together and just hold everything together, you could say, in Bhagavad Gita. And then we will look at the third to last verse, chapter 18, verse 76, which is describing really so nicely, it's quite amazing and wonderful actually. The end result is, let us move forward, everyone. Agaya, agaya. Yes, come forward. Don't worry. I will not bite you. I am vegetarian. And I just had lunch, so don't worry. Okay, so sit down again and relax. Just relax. Oh, look at that. Dhananjaya Prabhu. Thank you very much.
For those of you who don't have a book, we're also going to put it up on the screen as well.
Right, yeah. It's going up. Is it up?
Bhagavad Gita's up, 1-1.
Oh, 1-1. Okay, we'll start with that. Right, everyone. So my point here is just a brief point to get things started from, and then we will launch into the verse that we're going to really focus on. But this is just for your interest's sake, and, well, it's important too. So here we go. It's the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. And let us do it responsively, line by line. And Nikunja Prabhu, Shanti, Shanti. Do you understand? No, I mean, Nikunja is back there. Got it? Yes. I'm talking to the little boy back there, so don't worry. Okay, so here we go, everyone, responsibly. Dhritarashtra Vacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Kurvata Sanjaya. So, okay, here's the translation. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Well, what do you think they did do? They assembled desiring to fight, and what do you think they did? They sat down and had a cup of tea with scones, with cream and jam. That's what they did. And they chatted about the weather. No, they didn't actually. Well, in due course, not right now in fact, but in due course they did fight. But now the person inquiring here, speaking this verse, Dhritarashtra, is the father, well, he's talking about his sons, the father of the main people on the, what do you say, how to put it, colloquially, the bad guys' side. Yeah, we don't appreciate them so much. Boo. Yes. So anyway, there they are, his sons, or a whole lot of people headed by his sons. And on the other side are the good guys, Haribol, the sons of Pandu. And they all assembled there, designed to fight. I'm not going to go into all the historical backgrounds of why and the details of who and all that. But that's what happened. And so that's the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verse 1. And the very last verse, which is spoken by Sanjaya, who is being addressed here in this very first verse, the very final verse, just bear with me for a sec, and here we go, the very last verse is chapter 18, verse 78. And this is now, devotees and friends, Sanjaya's answer. Even though Dhritarashtra is saying, they're all assembled, they're desiring to fight, and then what did they do? Well, he's not exactly asking, what did they do, because it's kind of obvious what they're going to do. But what his question is, the underlying, only very slightly subtle theme of his question is, who's going to win? Yeah. Who's going to win? Tell me. What do you think? Who do you think is going to win? Because he's worried. His sons are there. And what's going to happen to them? So it's a subtle way of asking, what do you think at least the result of this battle is going to be? So here now, do we have verse 78 there? Oh, very good. Yeah, I can't see, can I? Anyway, well, let's do it responsibly. Why not? So this is Sanjaya speaking. Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno.
Yatra Partho Tanurdhara.
Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara.
Tatra Shriyar Vijayo Bhutir. Dhruva Nityar Matir Nama. And the translation I mentioned, you can see it there. Wherever there is Krishna. Well, it's okay. So this is his answer. This is Sanjaya's answer. And it's also kind of diplomatic, subtle. He doesn't just say, well, listen, as far as I can see, your sons are going to be, all of them are going to be killed, and you're going to just lose everything, and tough luck. That's what I feel is going to happen. No, in a very, again, in a diplomatic and polite way, he answers that, well, because Krishna is on the Pandava's side, opposing Dhritarashtra's sons. And Krishna is super special, of course. And then there's Arjuna, who is also on that side, opposing the sons of Dhritarashtra, and who is some super warrior. So he says, well, what do I think? Well, what I think is, wherever there's Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there's Arjuna, the supreme archer, there'll also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That's my opinion. Yeah. Well, it is his opinion. But it's not just an opinion. He's in such a position. He can see what's going to happen. This is pretty obvious. So, but, in order to be polite and not be rude, and just sort of rub Dhritarashtra's nose in the, whatever unpleasantness is there. Says, well, that's my opinion. That's what I think. Right, yeah, because wherever there's Krishna, who, amongst many other things, actually, he is the master of all mystical powers, magical powers. Here's one. By his power, this planet we're sitting on right now has not dropped out of the sky. It's still floating around and spinning around. In fact, it's spinning around so precisely that, maybe it's a second a year or something, that there's some sort of, or maybe it's a bit more than a second year, that they need to sort of reevaluate and, make sure that day one of the next year is really starting at the right time. That's mystical power, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, who of us, if you take a rock and throw it Who amongst us could make the rock just become suspended in space and sit there for a good few thousand or million years? I don't think any of us. You're just a master's, right? You haven't got a PhD yet. You're pretty smart. Do you think you could do that? You couldn't do that.
Not even in dreams.
Yeah, right. But Krishna's doing that. And this is a big rock which is floating in the sky and it's not dropping out. How is it not dropping out? We just hold a rock like that and it just drops. But this huge rock is not dropping. And it's very systematically spinning around. You all know what I mean. Yeah, and that's his mystical power. His power. Well, it's mystical in the sense that we can't really see how it's working. Therefore it's mysterious. Yeah, well, that's Krishna. He's the master of all mystics. And then wherever there's Arjuna, the supreme archer, is just like a uniquely powerful warrior and archer. So where you get the two of them, which in this case means on the other side, opposing you and your sons, then, well, sometimes, as far as I'm concerned, wherever you got that arrangement, there'll also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power and morality. But then it says, Nityar Matyar Mama. Dhruvam Nityar Matyar Mama. That's my opinion. Yeah. Yes, okay. Okay, everyone. Haribol. Attention, s'il vous plaît. Yeah, okay, so there we are. I just thought I'd throw that at you because a lot of people, even a lot of devotees, are not aware that the first verse, it's a specific question to Sanjaya, who himself is a great mystic, actually. And he can see the future, and if not see it, but just by seeing what's going on, he can understand what is likely to happen in the future. So he's asking him, who's going to win? Are my sons going to win or are they going to lose? And Sanjaya, in such a nice, polite way, there's a saying that politics is the art of being polite. That's why it's politics, it's politeness. You get Mr. Trump, Haribol, and you get Mr. Putin. They haven't met recently, I think, but last time they met, and you must know, they hate each other so much, you just could hardly express it. But when they meet, it's all smiles and, shake hand, and maybe even embrace my friend. So Sanjaya's being polite. You want my opinion, what's going to happen? Well, indirectly he's saying, yeah, because Krishna's here, because Arjuna's here on the other side, then on their side, there'll be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. So like this, the whole Bhagavad Gita is tied together from verse 1 to chapter 18, verse 78, the very last verse, the 700th verse precisely, tied together. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty dramatic. It's not just pretty dramatic, it's really just the height of drama. And to sort of capture the mood and the feel of it all, we are now going to focus on the same where you are. You're in chapter 18, just 3 verses before, chapter 18, verse 76. 1876, which I assume is there now. Are you controlling it? Oh, you are. Okay. Yes. So, you know, and the idea here is that, well, like I said, you know, it's dramatic. It's just what a situation it is. And therefore, and this is, again is Sanjaya speaking, and now he is expressing the feeling, the mood of someone who has heard Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita. Now he's sort of in the process, Sanjaya is in the process of summarizing it and bringing it to a conclusion, but he's heard this whole conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, and he's just feeling just so excited because what an amazing thing it is. So here we go, everyone, let's do it again. Why not? Open up Bhagavad Gita, 1876. Rajam samsmritya samsmritya samvadam imam adbhutam Keshavarjunayo punyam Rishyami cha muhur muhur. Right, and here's the translation. O king, this is Sanjaya, like I said, and he is addressing Dhritarashtra, who is officially the king at this point in time, but just in the extremely near future, he's no longer going to be the king, because him and his team, his sons, they're just about to lose, as Sanjaya, already said in the last verse. So, right, O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment. In other words, Bhagavad Gita is not a dull and boring book of philosophy. Some clever person's attempt at giving some clever ideas about what is life. Yeah. As Prabhuji announced, I was studying philosophy in Auckland University in 1972 when I first saw Srila Prabhupada. And I must say that I was studying, the typical, I don't know if any of you studied philosophy at university, but, all the sort of classical, typical philosophers of the Western world who, they're clever, it's a fact. It's not like they're not clever. But when it comes to getting at the reality of what is life in this world, well, that's another thing. Yeah, they don't do well with that. They don't do well at all. And I particularly remember, in fact, I found it so, I was studying it because I wanted to understand life. Actually, I wasn't even so worried about whether I got a degree or not, but I was definitely concerned. I want to understand life clearly, and myself and people, and what's it all about. And one of the people I studied, I think his name was Wittgenstein. Anyway, if it wasn't him, it was one of those sort of European philosophers from a couple of hundred years ago. He had what he called the philosophy of the doubt, that you shouldn't just accept things on face value just because someone comes and tells you that, I think this is the truth. Then it's not that you should just immediately think, oh, right, thank you, I've got it now. No, you've got to look into it. You've got to think about it. And you've got to doubt it. You've got to test it. And just see, does it make sense? Or how much sense does it make? Like that. Because you don't want to be some sort of naive, what's someone called a humble bumble. Being humble is nice, but being a humble bumble means you're kind of a bit stupid. Just accepting, oh, okay. But whether it's true or not, it's not clear to you. So anyway, this fellow had the philosophy of the doubt. And in a certain sense, it sounds good. Don't be naive. Really just try and see how is it? Is it really the truth, or partially, or what is it? So he became popular because, in those days, they didn't have popular musicians like Oasis. Have you heard of Oasis?
Yeah.
Very good. I only heard of, seriously, I've never heard their music. I just read something about them a couple of months ago. They came together again after retiring for a while or something, but apparently they're pretty good at it. Anyway. So yes. So the philosophy of the doubt, that you've got to test things and just see and really try to evaluate and use your intelligence. Don't just accept someone else's intelligence. Use your intelligence. And he became very popular, because I was saying, in those days they didn't have popular musicians like Oasis, or in my youth, the Beatles, or even, I'm from an era even before the Beatles. There was music before the Beatles. I'm from the Elvis Presley era. Late Elvis Presley. Very popular. Really extremely popular. But they didn't have these types of people in those days. And philosophers who were sort of, good speakers, they could entertain while informing people. Many of them became popular and got followings. And they would go around, travel around, and do, presentations in halls and things that people would come and pay money, and like this, they were really popular personalities. So this fellow then, the philosophy of the doubt, he became very popular, and people bought his books, and he made some money. But then after some years, I should have checked how many years, but after some, like maybe 20 years or so, he made another pronouncement. He said, all of you people who have accepted my philosophy, You're all fools because I doubt my philosophy. Did you get that? Yeah, that's what he said. In other words, he's saying, my philosophy is nonsense, really. I doubted it, I figured it out, and I saw, it's a whole lot of rubbish. So, join me in throwing it out. Yes, right, so, yes, I was studying philosophy and I wasn't impressed. I wanted to be impressed, but I wasn't impressed by these people. Bertrand Russell, a British philosopher of 100 and something years ago, 130 years ago, he did an essay or something called Why I Am Not a Christian. And not that we're, on something about anti-Christianity, but he tried to explain why he's not a Christian. And I read it not long ago, like maybe last year sometime, and I thought his arguments against Christianity were really weak. I was not impressed, really not impressed. Because they're not really so intelligent, it's more like just a type of cleverness. They can play with words better than the average person can. So that now here is Arjuna, or here is Sanjaya in fact. And he has been listening to the conversation of Krishna and Arjuna. In the beginning, Arjuna was very doubtful. In fact, maybe he was even beyond doubt. He was basically convinced that this is wrong. Here I am, I'm on this battlefield. I'm meant to fight. That's the idea. But I think it's all wrong. I don't think we should be fighting. And I don't think I should fight. In fact, I'm convinced I should definitely not fight. And then Krishna starts discussing with them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And, it's really interesting. And Sanjaya has been listening. Sanjaya has been listening. And that's why he's saying that, as I remember this whole discussion, I just feel so inspired and excited. So Sanjaya had been listening to the way Krishna was presenting things to Arjuna. And he found that Krishna's presentation was not just sort of clever, tricky, catching Arjuna out in some ways, something like that. But he found, Sanjaya found, and Arjuna himself found, that actually what Krishna was saying made such wonderful sense. It just clarified practically everything. Practically everything, or you could even say actually everything. Beginning with who am I, and who are you, who are we, and what are we doing here? Why are we here? What are we doing, and what should we be doing? What should we be doing here? What's it all about in that sense? So he felt that Krishna's presentation was just fantastic. Just amazing. And it wasn't, I remember in one of the courses I took, there was a book, the textbook by the particular philosopher, and he said, when you think about things enough, the statement, I exist, becomes such a complex and deep statement, and just amazing that you can write a whole book about it. Just that I exist. I thought, gee whiz, you don't have much to think about, do you? But that's what you get so excited about, whether I exist or not. It's amazing. Really, it's amazing. But here's now Sanjaya having heard Krishna instructing Arjuna, and Sanjaya feeling, as he says, it has been a wondrous and holy dialogue, and I'm feeling so much pleasure. And not only that, but actually I am thrilled at every moment. What an experience. Let me read Prabhupada's purport. I suppose it's there. It's just a very short purport, what, about 4 sentences, I think. The understanding of Bhagavad Gita is so transcendental that anyone who becomes conversant with the topics of Arjuna and Krishna becomes righteous. And he cannot forget such talks. This is the transcendental position of spiritual life. In other words, one who hears the Gita from the right source, directly from Krishna, attains full Krishna consciousness. The result of Krishna consciousness is that one becomes increasingly enlightened, and he enjoys life with a thrill, not only for some time, but at every moment. Just consider that. It's like it's an eternal experience of just being enlivened with enlightenment. It's just, and it just goes on and on. We've all seen sort of, thrilling movies, I'm sure. Yeah, back in the old days, and when the old days for me means, sort of the 60s. James Bond just started. I watched I think Dr. No was the first one, if I remember correctly, which I don't know if I did, but it was maybe the first one. And wow, so exciting, particularly for a young man, I was probably still in my teens, and wow, James Bond. But it's not that it remains like that. And also, you just keep watching it. You come back the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and just carry on watching it. And every time you just feel, wow, amazing. After a while, you feel like, okay, that's enough. What's next? What was next? Probably Goldfinger, I suppose. I'm reliving my youth. Not exactly. But yeah, the thing is, so many of you from Indian backgrounds, let me mention something relevant or recognizable to you. How about Kuch Kuch Hota Hai? Did you see Kuch Kuch Hota Hai? Naveen? You didn't? Congratulations. But you saw it, didn't you? I'm sure you did. I think you didn't miss much. Don't stress about it, Naveen. Because it's just not like that. A lot of these movies, people walk out in the middle because it's just, oh gosh, it's just sort of the same old thing. seen it 20 times before. Yeah. So that now here, Sanjaya, don't worry, it's a minor crisis. It will get sorted out. It's okay. It's not stress. Okay, Nadia? You okay? Everything's okay? Carry on. And if anyone pinches you, you pinch them back. That was the previous crisis. Someone pinched me or pinched her. But the thing is, material life is not so thrilling. Some of these people, like I said, they're very clever. These movie makers, and now they've got AI, and they can do things, very impressively. And if you're not sort of used to it, then it can be like, wow. But it's not just like, wow, just on and on and on. After a while, you just get tired of it. Yeah, you just get tired of it. Or once you've seen the same movie so many times. When I was young, there was one lady, there was a movie, The Sound of Music, Julie Andrews. And this lady had been to see it every day for about a year. And she was interviewed, like, how did you manage it? And I forget what she said, but she was just somehow or other addicted. Or like, again, if you're from Indian backgrounds, what is it? Dulwale Dulyana Le Jayenge. Namaste. The longest playing movie in the history of humanity in Mumbai. I think it's now 30 years or something like that. It's been playing every day for about 30 years. Yes, right. So the thing is here, because this is transcendental, this is what Prabhupada says here, that anyone who becomes conversant with Bhagavad Gita, with the topics of Arjuna and Krishna, they become righteous. It has that effect on them. It just, their interest in, sort of nonsense things and immoral things just gets cleansed away. And it's so striking, as Prabhupada says, that person cannot forget such talks. Why? Because this is the transcendental position of spiritual life. In spiritual life, in regard to matters which are transcendental, meaning, in very simple terms, above and beyond, like the limits of material existence, above and beyond that. It starts beyond the end of what the material world has to offer. So, yes, then it's just, the experience is something we don't really have, we've not had that sort of experience before. That's the thing. One who hears the Gita from the right source directly from Krishna attains full Krishna consciousness, and then the result is that one becomes increasingly enlightened and enjoys life with a thrill, not only for some time, not like if we talk about reading some exciting book, not just, the first time it's very exciting. Well, I can also tell you, some of you might be able to relate to this. When I was at school, and I was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, as part of our school program, our class read and studied The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Are you familiar with that? C.S. Lewis. And I was so struck by it. Well, every day we were going, doing some number of pages. I got so into it. I demanded my mother go to the library and take it out of the library immediately. So she went to the library. And the book had been taken out. It was not available in the library. And she came back and told me. And I was just a small boy, like 7 or 8 maybe. And to be quite honest, you know what happened? I cried because we couldn't get this book. Because it was just moving me so much. Then I sort of didn't exactly read it, but I glanced through it about 60 years later. And I thought, gee, I thought this was really cool, didn't I? It's not really that cool. It's just, not really very interesting. So that's what material experience is like. Some initial experience of something exciting, it's like, wow, it's amazing. But then after a while, it's, okay, it's ordinary. Had enough of that. What's next? But now here, with Bhagavad Gita, that if you hear it nicely from the right source, directly from Krishna, then you become increasingly enlightened step by step. You enjoy life with a thrill, not just for a while, but at every moment. There is a commentary on Bhagavad Gita by Srila Baladeva Jabusha, great spiritual master from maybe 400 years ago or so. In fact, Srila Prabhupada dedicates his translation and commentary on Bhagavad Gita. If you've got a copy, you'll see it, right in the beginning pages. Prabhupada dedicates his Bhagavad Gita to Baladeva Jabusha. So Baladeva Jabusha, he gave a prologue, or no, epilogue, anyway, some concluding words. Put me on a boat and pushed me out into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita. So now he's floating out into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita. But, then he says, then suddenly my boat started sinking. And as it was sinking down deeper and deeper into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita, I kept finding more and more jewels in the meanings. Because jewels, at least the Vedic perspective is, they come from the ocean. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw a photo of the beaches, of any of the beaches in Namibia. Namibia, Southwest, used to be Southwest Africa in the apartheid days. The beaches had gems and semi-precious stones just covering the beaches. Amazing, incredible. And then along came, of course, our friendly industrial jewelry type people with their bulldozers, and they bulldozed them all up and sold them and made a profit. And, welcome to the material world. But these photos before of some of the beaches just covered in these red and blue and green stones. actual jewelry or semi-precious stones, because the jewels come from the ocean. Yeah. So anyway, Baladev the Jabusha says, I kept going down and down like a submarine, going deeper into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita and finding more and more jewels in the meanings. And then he finishes, he says, and now I don't want to come out. I just want to stay in the Bhagavad Gita. Even though on a certain level, it's more just to introduce people to the ideas, basic ideas. And then once they're introduced, they can move on to generally Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's made up of multiple thin layers. And each layer is some other tasty thing. Maybe a fruit or just something sweet and then another fruit. And you get these cakes, they got like 30 layers. Sri Panchadanta Ki Jai. Is that a hint that I should stop? Are you getting me? Going to close me out. Yeah, so, when you eat these cakes, it's just, you go from one taste to another taste to another taste. It's just a whole succession of different tastes. And, that's his experience here in studying Bhagavad Gita. That it's not just like, got the message. I got the idea, that's it, finished. So I'm done with that, I'll go on to something else. But you can keep going through the same thing. And each time you go through, and it's not even like just there's 30 layers and, once you've been through them all, you've been through them all. But you can just keep going through it again and again and again and again and again and then again and again and again and again. And there's no end, there's literally no end to it. And each time you go through it, this is like the experience Sanjaya's having. The result of Krishna consciousness is that one becomes increasingly enlightened each time. It's not like you reach that point, yeah, okay, done that, I've read that. But you can just stick with this one book. I mean, we have many more, but you can just stick with this one book, even though in a certain sense it's the introductory level. But that's okay, you can just stick with that, and that'll be enough. And you'll just be fully satisfied. And not only fully satisfied, but sooner or later, you will meet God in the pages. Yeah. You'll actually meet Him. You'll see Him and speak to Him, and He'll speak to you in the pages of Bhagavad Gita. And there's no end to it. As Prabhupada says, become increasingly enlightened, enjoy life with a thrill, not only for some time, but at every moment, which includes going on into the future indefinitely. So this is Bhagavad Gita, actually. This is Bhagavad Gita, and this is Krishna consciousness. This is the experience of this particular person. And this can be our experience too. The thing is that, well, also, it's related to chanting the names of the Lord. It's the same sort of idea that you can keep reading Bhagavad Gita that we've just been mentioning. You can just keep reading it, and you'll keep discovering new things which are just like, wow, real wow experiences. And similarly with chanting the names of the Lord, you can just keep chanting And like, you see over here, this is Dhananjaya Prabhu. Haribol. How many years you been chanting now?
Not enough.
What a clever answer.
48 years.
48. She whiz. And but it's okay still, you're not getting bored with it yet.
Maybe next year. 50 years might be.
Okay. Isn't he full of good answers? But really, it's like that. He's been chanting for 48 years, like a couple of hours a day at least, chanting Hare Krishna, a couple of hours a day. And after 48 years, and he's not bored. And, you know, like I mentioned, I was, first of all, well, the first record I bought in my youth as a schoolboy was Chubby Checker singing Let's Twist Again. You remember that? Oh my gosh. Are you from the same era as me? Let's Twist Again. What is it? Like we did last year.
Summer.
Like we did last summer. Around and up and down. Okay. And then there was Elvis Presley. Then there was the Beatles. And you know, actually, let me tell you a little story. At the end of 1979, just the last few days, between Christmas and the end of 79, I went with another Dhananjaya, Prabhupada disciple, who is actually a relative of mine. We went, well, I just drove him really, to meet with George Harrison. So we went out to George Harrison's big mansion, you know, out near Oxford, and we spent about 3 hours with him. He was extremely nice and very interesting discussions. And one that particularly struck me was that he told us how he and I think John Lennon, they had been to India, got into a bit of yoga and meditation. Now they've come back to Europe. And one day, and they're doing some chanting from time to time. One day they were on a boat cruise in the Mediterranean, something like that. And they just woke up in the morning, one morning, and decided, hey, let's chant Hare Krishna. Yeah, okay. So they did. And they chanted on till breakfast time, but they didn't stop. They just kept chanting. Then lunchtime came, and one of the, the waiters or whoever came and said, look, it's lunchtime. You didn't have any breakfast. You must come and have lunch. And they said, yeah, sure, fine. See you later. And they just kept chanting. And in the end, they chanted for more than 20 hours. Other than some toilet breaks, they didn't eat a thing. And George Harrison told us this convinced him that this is actually something on a different level altogether. I mean, he already had the idea, but this solidified the idea. So I asked him, what would it have been like if you sang one of your Beatles songs for 20 hours? In fact, I mentioned, what would it have been like if you sang, I Want to Hold Your Hand? Did you ever hear that? Oh, you did? I'm sorry to hear that. Anyway, I imagine many of you have heard of that. It was extremely popular, to put it mildly, going back 60 years or something. So I asked him, what would it have been like if you sang that song for 20 hours? And George thought momentarily, And then he said, well, you'd have to, be familiar with Beatles culture to get this. George said, you know, I think it would have been a hard day's night. Did you get that? Have you heard it, Hard Day's Night? You didn't miss much. Don't worry about it. Anyway, it's just another famous song of the Beatles. It's been a hard day's night. I've been working like a dog. You know, like life is tough. That's the idea. Yeah, it would have been tough to sing one of their songs, for them to sing one of their songs for 20 hours or so would have really been tough. Even though it was, you know, fantastically popular for some time back, I think 1964. So, but that's material. And here we have our Dhananjaya Prabhu, who has been chanting every day for at least a couple of hours, and I think sometimes more, I'm sure sometimes more. And he's not thinking, okay, I've done that mantra, what's the next mantra? Can we have a new mantra, please? No, he's just carrying on. Because it's not of the same nature as I want to hold your hand, or, you know, all that sort of, or Oasis. And I'm not proud to say, but I'm happy to say that I never heard any of their music at all. And I just couldn't care less about it. Yeah, so we're talking about transcendental spiritual experience, which, you know, is very real and very substantial. Now, we're talking about 48 years, if that's not enough, you know, if that's not enough, yeah. So that's Krishna consciousness. That's Bhagavad Gita. That's our mantra meditation. And that's everything in Krishna consciousness is like that. It is all on that higher level which begins when the whole material thing finishes. And it just doesn't go beyond that point. It just does not. And it cannot reach beyond that level. But then beyond that level comes that eternal space of transcendence. And that's why Sanjaya here is just, he's ecstatic, he's overwhelmed. He's thrilled at every moment. And it's just an ongoing thing. He'll be thrilled for the rest of his life till he drops dead. It'll be the same experience. And the same for our Dhananjaya Prabhu. There he is. And you can speak to him about it. Seriously, no joking. Because it's, you know, it's very important to get closer to and sort of tune in to long-term practitioners, experienced people, really like deeply experienced people. So there you go, everyone. I think I will give you all a break. And Hare Krishna. And thank you for being patient and listening attentively. And I suppose we should see, anyone have any comments, questions, points anyone would like to raise? Anything related, or even not related for that matter, to do with Krishna consciousness? And this is your wife, am I right? Or am I? Okay. Glad I didn't make a mistake there.
She's been chanting for the same number.
48 years. Good on you. And never missed a day, right? Never. not one. Right? And sometimes more than, a couple of hours. Sometimes the actual whole day. Shri Bhakti Caitanya. So of course the thing is, and I will finish in just 1 minute. The thing is, we have to be attentive. If we're trying to do these things, but our mind is just off here and there and different places, and we're not giving our attention, then it's like that the Shakti means the power, the potency, will not come through to us, into our hearts. It'll sort of bounce off, something like that. Yeah, and so the experience will not be there. And you'll end up thinking, what am I doing this for? I mean, that's what happened to me. The first time I chanted on beads, 1972 sometime, I chanted for half an hour, and my mind was all over, I don't know about the universe, but it was all over London, and it was in a multitude of places. And as a result, the Shakti couldn't enter. It was like there was a barrier there, and it was hitting the barrier. Like if someone's trying to shoot someone, then, there's a barrier, the bullets keep hitting the barrier. Then the person behind the barrier is unaffected completely, means nothing. So similarly, someone who is not giving their attention, but rather, they're chanting or they're reading Bhagavad Gita, but they're thinking about, what am I doing tomorrow? What did I do today? And what is on at work? And all this sort of stuff. It's not going to penetrate. It's a very simple thing. It's just going to bounce off, and you will stay the same. Sort of the same bored old person that you've been, or the same boring old person, whatever you might say. Yeah, so we have to do it attentively, have to give our attention, and then it just goes through into the heart, and wow, what an experience. Okay, I ask you questions, comment. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody else has had that experience.
No, you go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
fine.
I think she's asking, does anyone else have that experience
Has I had that experience yet?
of where you find that it's hard to chant sometimes?
No, not chance to have that experience of opening up and...
Oh,
Could you understand?
Opening up.
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I see. Yeah. For me, the first time I read Bhagavad Gita, I reached it took about a couple of weeks to read the whole Bhagavad Gita, the entire thing. And I remember coming to the end. At the end, Krishna concludes by saying that we should surrender to him, or sort of give ourselves to him and become his servants. I remember reading that and then closing the book and thinking, right, that's it. I got to do it. I got to surrender to Krishna. Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm still here. 56 years later. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Have you had that experience? Or are you still working on it?
Yourself, Anna? have you
Yeah,
had an
still
experience?
working on it, yeah.
Okay. Good. Keep working at it.
I think it'll take a long time to get rid of routine with stuff.
Okay, step by step.
Yeah.
You might surprise yourself, or Krishna might surprise you, that, it could be tomorrow or the next day. So it's like, oh, wow. And it's like someone turned the light on. Yeah.
Something to look forward
something to look forward to.
Oh yeah, nectar. And then from that point on, it's nectar at every step, just on and on. And as it says here, it's endless. Thank you. Okay, everyone, I think that's it. Is that okay?
We can see if there's one more question or reflection. Nancy, was that you? No. There you are. Volunteer.
I just wanted to say that before I met the devotees, I used to read some books of philosophy, and some of them had nice ideas there. They kind of made you feel good, but they didn't change your way of life. So when I read Sri Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, they actually, they were a catalyst for me to actually want to change the way that I was. Because there was a higher spiritual goal there, and it had more of a deeper understanding of what the essence of life was. So that's why I was able to take it up then, because I could feel that the books were actually a lot higher level, but they also really appealed to the essence of my nature. They made a real difference to my life. That's all.
Right. Thank you, that's a good one. Yeah, practical effects that you change for the better, and your life changes with you for the better. Prabhu, yes.
Maharaj, recently, last 2 years, I had some experience when we are trying to present Prabhu's books, especially Bhagavad Gita, to the new teachers in the university, secular teachers.
I see.
So many of them, some of them are really understanding the philosophy, but they kept saying that the way it's been written probably was okay in 60s, but now for our new students, we need to have that in a different writing. So of course, we need to have it in a modern writing or changed writing.
Oh.
So for them, and then the philosophy is more accepting for the new students. For us as devotees, it's difficult because these books have been written for 10,000 years. We don't want to change it, we don't want to do anything when we present it. So how do we see that? Because at the same time we want to outreach and taking these books to as many universities and colleges as possible.
Okay. Yeah, okay, it's an interesting point. At least one thing I'd say is that we have Bhagavad Gita, of course, but we have other books, like what particularly comes to mind is The Science of Self-Realization. And there's one or two kind of related. What is it? The Journey of Self-Discovery is another one. And they're kind of topical and geared towards just a more sort of ordinary person, not so, philosophically minded, put it that way, yeah. And, interesting point is, though, that it's not that has been created just recently. It's all from Prabhupada, in fact, in the 60s or early to mid 70s. So, for introducing people, then oftentimes that type of book is more practical, because it kind of starts opening them up, and then they can approach Bhagavad Gita more easily, and it becomes more, they see, oh yeah, right, okay, now I get it. Otherwise it's like, it can be quite an inundation of different information compared to whatever they're used to. So that's my sort of theory. It's good to start a lot of people on something like Science of Self-Realization. It's topical and simpler. It's Prabhupada. It's not like it's somebody else sat down and wrote something. It's Prabhupada, but he's introducing things, and it just makes it easier for the average mind to get started on the path. And then when they get Bhagavad Gita, then it starts making sense. Otherwise, if you just sort of, as they say, throw them in at the deep end, it depends, but in some number of cases, it may be a bit too much for them initially. Maybe, but it depends. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Very well. Okay. Kya ho raha hai? What's the program?
Well, firstly, we'd like to thank you for giving this talk on the Bhagavad Gita. So, His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami ki,
Jai.
Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
and so what we're going to do now, Srila Prabhupada one time said that his books are a word jugglery to convince us to chant Hare Krishna. And of course this is Prabhupada being humble. His books are nectar, as Maharaj was saying. But the conclusion of all of the books and the Bhagavad Gita is to surrender to Krishna. And the easiest and the most sublime way to surrender or take shelter of Krishna in this age that we live in is by chanting the holy names of Krishna. So please, we'll give it a little practice just now. Put your arms in the air and repeat after me. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there's there's three ways to chant. One is that we chant like a personal meditation on beads, japa beads, where we chant quietly to ourselves. Kirtan is like loud chanting. And Sankirtan means congregational chanting. So we're going to now ask you all to please stand up. And if you can put your cushions to the sides. Generally we have the men on this side of the temple room, we have the ladies on this side.